And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
There are people who like monster horror movies. I'm not necessarily one of those, but I think everyone likes a little bit of horror, even if it's silly, fun horror, or if it's Scooby-Doo horror, where at the end you take off the mask and lo and behold, it was Old Man Jenkins all along. Well, that's kind of like what this game is here. Finstere Flure, which actually has been reprinted, called Fearsome Floors. I got it before they came out with the English version of it. But it's essentially the same game. So this is a game in which you have a bunch of people who are trapped in the monster's lair, and you are all running out as fast as you can. But apparently there's lots of people trapped, and you're all running out. And if you can push the other guy down while you're running out, so much the better. Let's take a look. Here is the monster's lair, which is a board here. You can actually set up some terrain like these puddles of blood, and you have little movable columns that you can place. And the terrain is made up of many different spaces. The monster is going to be starting here. Now, let's look at this monster for a moment. I built this monster. He's an eyeball with some funky shoes and a body, but the game actually comes with a whole pile of pieces that you can use. You can build your traditional Frankenstein, you can build a blob creature, a guy with a skeleton. In fact, you can make your creature really weird if you want to. I could put a skeleton head on top of this and just be funky. Or you can build two monsters if you just want to die for some reason. So players are going to have a monster, and that monster is going to start in this spot over here. Players then will have a team of people who are trapped inside this dungeon. And they're down here. Now you'll notice that there's 4 colors of some pieces. That's if you play with fewer players. Then you have 4 tokens for each team. If you play with more players, up to 7 players, then you'll only have 3 tokens with each team. Now these teams are kind of thematic. You have the 3 investigators and their dog. You have the Addams family. You have a bunch of punks here. You have your typical scared teenage girls and guys. You have nerds. You have a bunch of priests and some detectives. But each of these teams is essentially the same. Well, 4 or 3 pieces. They have numbers on them, and that number is how far you can move. So on a player's turn, they're going to take one of these guys. So for example, they take this detective here, and he'll move 5 spaces. So you put him here to start, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you're done, you flip him over. And then it shows a black number on the other side. That number is how far he'll move next turn. Next turn, he'll move 2 spaces, 1, 2, and then flip. And so then he'll move 5. And each person has a number on the other side. The 1s have 6s on the other side, the 3s have 4s, the 4s have 3s, etc. So every piece basically has the same amount of movement, just different amounts in each turn. When you're moving, you can move through other players, but you can't move into their spot. You can also push these columns around. You can even push other players if you push a column around. If you land in blood, you slide to the other side. I guess it's like a fun amusement park ride or so. It can be helpful or it can be hurtful. And so players are going to move as many as their people onto the board. It might be possible that you won't get all your people onto the board, but they'll be moving around the board. Your goal is to get to the exit over here. After all the players have moved, the monster moves. Now the monster will be drawing a tile from this movement tile stack, and he'll draw a tile that shows how far that monster moves. Now, so, for example, here, the monster moves 5. So he just moves 5 spaces straight forward. Now, when the monster moves, he will always look in all 3 directions. He looks to his right, to his left, and to the front of him. So if you're right behind him, which will happen often in this game, he won't see you. He also won't see you if you're diagonal to him. Like he can't see that gentleman there because of the pillars. If he moves, let's say he's moving 5, he looks. He doesn't see anybody in any direction. So then he moves 1, and he looks, and he sees this priest down there who's very scared. He will instantly turn towards that priest and continue his movement. 2, 3, 4, 5. Although, once again, each time he moves, he'll look, and if he sees someone closer, he'll move to that person. He will also slide in the blood. He will also move through these pillars. And if on the outside of the boards, let's see if we can focus here real quick, you'll see that each spot here on the board has a letter associated with that, so he will walk through that letter and come out on the other side if he has to. So the monster can wrap around the board, and that's, in horror movies, like, how did the monster get to move so fast? Because the plot required it. And that's what happens here too. If he lands on you, you come off the board and you have to start over again. Now, if the monster sees multiple people, he will move towards the closer one. But if those people are with the same distance away from that monster, he gets confused and he'll just keep coming forward. So what you can do, and this is evil, but it's fun, is you can deliberately position so that the monster sees you, he'll start coming towards you, and then he'll see someone who's closer, he'll turn and get that person instead. So that's what's going to happen. After the monster moves, all the players move again. Now, when the monster moves, sometimes the monster, most of the pieces that he have just say move a certain number of spaces, 8 or 10. But sometimes there's 2 tiles. One says the monster just moves until he gets somebody. He will kill someone. Or the monster will continue until he gets 2 people. Once you've gone through all the tiles, you will shuffle them and play again with these same tiles, but then you enter phase 2. The difference between phase 1 and phase 2 is in phase 2, if the monster gets you, you're dead and out of the game forever. Now, the goal is to get all your tokens except 1 off the side of the board. So in a 5, 6, 7 player game, get 2 of your tokens out, you win. In a 4, 3, or 2 player game, you need to get 3 of your tokens out, and then you win. Then there's other rules. These pillars all have other sides to them. There's teleport tiles. There's special tiles that you can use. And you can essentially make the game harder or easier. You can also add 2 monsters if for some reason like I said, you want to die. But that's how you play. Now, when you look at my collection, I have a lot of games in my collection, and but I don't have room for all the games I've ever had. I've had probably 2,500 games, and I don't have room for that. I have about 400 here. So games come in and go, and if I keep a new game, I have to replace an older game with it. So a lot of older games hit the dust after a while. So it takes a really good older game for me to keep it. This game's almost a decade old, and it's still my collection. Now, part of that's because, woohoo, look how thin that box is. Easy to fit on the shelf. But another reason is because I like it that much. It fits up to 7 players, and it plays 7 players well. It's one of the games I like and enjoy playing with 7 players. There's lots of chaos, people running in directions, the monster just going around, chomping people right and left, so it's kind of silly fun. Now, there is a problem with the game. I'll talk about the problem first and then the good things. The problem with the game is there are a few people who really can bog down in this game. They'll sit there. You know how the monster is going to move. The monster is going to move in a very programmed form. You don't know how far he's going to move, but you know the direction he's going to move. And each person who moves possibly changes how the monster is going to move because the monster will see them and go after them. That can be problematic for someone who will sit there and really analyze this, and to the point where they are just paralyzed. They don't know what to do next. Now, a good solution to that is to tip their seat over, and then as they scramble up, inform them that they have 20 seconds to make their move. Well, that's probably not possible and can also be a detriment to your gaming group in general. Really, if you have someone like that, don't play this game with them. Because this game, sure, you should think about where the monster is moving, but quickly think and move. And just see what happens. It's a fun game. It's supposed to be light. If you take this game too seriously, it's not enjoyable anymore. But fun and light, excellent fun. The chaos is fun. The fact that it's a monster theme shouldn't scare anyone. It's so weird. With puddles of blood and a monster moving around and chomping on people, and I guess eating them and doing worse, who knows. You would think that it's not a theme for kids, but it's because the artwork is so light and silly, and even the piles of blood. When I first played this with some kids a long time ago, they were like, "Oh, what is that? Is that Jell-O?" I said, "Yeah, why not? Red Jell-O on the floor." And that's pretty slippery too. So all this comes together to make a game that I find entertaining, one that has a fun theme, and hey, it's thin and can fit on your shelf.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.
Shut the door!